Good morning, my friends. I ran across a quote yesterday and it hit me so hard, I decided to do an episode about it. The quote was, I am my ancestors' wildest dream. Now, before we get into what this means as an entrepreneur and a parent and a spouse or whatever other roles you play in your life, I want to do a short introduction. So, if you're new here, yes, we talk sometimes about the deeper stuff. We talk about ancestral trauma. We talk about generational healing and the upside of it and what it means to be able to do that for yourself and for your family. So, that's where we're going today for sure. If you haven't had a chance to like or subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do so now because you're going to love the way this episode goes and the information that we dig up on this topic. So many people feel an attraction to this topic. They feel magnetic towards figuring this generational stuff out. And why is that? Let me tell you, it's because you're here to feel it. And you're here to heal it. And I truly believe that we have the ability and almost the responsibility to take on some of these traumas and finally release them from our family line. So let's talk about that today. Have you ever wondered why it feels so hard to grow, succeed, or feel safe? Even when logically you know you're not in danger. That's ancestral trauma, and it lives in the body. This is what happens after years and years of a nervous system response that's being triggered and not feeling safe. That is being passed down your family line. Now, to really illustrate this, about a year ago, I had an experience, a very spiritual experience, where I connected to my grandpa who's been deceased for longer than I've been alive. And I was able to feel into his final moments when he unexpectedly passed away and what he was experiencing, what he was feeling, the trauma associated with it, his thoughts, all of that, I was able to relive minus the pain. He saved me from having to feel the extent of that, but an interesting story nonetheless that I feel like gave me a window into how this stuff actually comes down our lines and is passed to our kids and their kids and so forth. And I feel like it's really important because when you can open your mind to that perspective, the healing side of it gets so much easier. Now, in my grandpa's case, I feel okay to share with you that some of his last thoughts centered around regret for climbing the law enforcement ladder, so to speak, and putting forth this work instead of spending more time with his children and his wife. Now, you can probably watch any movie out there that's sentimental or it's, about someone passing away, where you will notice that pattern of regrets. But that wasn't the most important thing that I felt. I felt that his limiting belief around how he had to work so hard to get so far in life is what established that hard work pattern in his life, maybe a little too much, arguably, and passing that down to his kids as well. So he passed down this hard work mentality that was so strong and so recognizable that I see it in every single one of my dad's siblings and in my siblings. So this work of helping release that type of trauma was very significant for me and for my family. And again, this knowledge of being able to recognize how your struggles may be connected to generational survival patterns is huge in the healing process. Now, for those of you who think this is all crazy talk, I hear the word woo-woo a lot. I don't know. I don't really subscribe to that. But here's the deal. There is notable scientific research on this topic, okay? And what you have to understand is the nervous system records what's safe and unsafe based on generations of trauma and adaptation. There was a study done in Harvard, and I'm not looking at it right now, but I will put it in the show notes, where they had trained these mice to be scared or in pain when a certain trigger went off. And as the older mice died, the younger mice who were never exposed to this trigger already knew to be scared. They didn't have to be taught to be scared of this trigger. They knew it because it was already in their system. This is what we refer to as epigenetics. That is exactly how trauma can be passed down energetically and biologically. Okay, so think about it this way, okay? Grandma didn't talk about her pain, so your body whispers it in anxiety, right? That would be a learned response, right? And I'm not pointing the finger at my grandma, just saying. I'm not trying to get all spiritual on you guys, but there is a scripture that I grew up with that my heart has been open to reading it and understanding it a little bit differently since doing this type of work. And it's in Malachi, and I'll just read one verse. It says, "And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." And to me, this is all about generational trauma and being able to heal it. The heart's turning isn't just about family connection. It's about breaking cycles, healing bloodlines, and aligning with divine timing before bigger consequences unfold. And I'm going to be real with you guys, okay? I don't think generations ago they would have understood this, okay? I think maybe there were a couple that would, but as a general rule, this was not something we talked about. This was not something people understood, that there's a connection there, right? We thought we just lived our lives and we moved on and we had babies and maybe the baby knows you, maybe not, but we didn't think we passed on things like this. But here we are. We have more knowledge now. And with more knowledge comes more responsibility. So take that with a grain of salt if you want. But to me, it is a clear direction on where I should be going in my life in order to fulfill that type of prophecy for my family. And I'll say one more thing about this. You were born into your family line for a reason. And I know not everybody has this, fabulous story, and not everybody, actually nobody is born into a perfect family where they have no secrets, where they have no trauma, right? That just doesn't exist. Okay. But if we can lean into the other side of that and recognize that some of these patterns not only were passed down to us, but they've been passed down. Your grandparents experienced some of these patterns that affected their lives as well and affected their decisions, right? We can see as we go up the line that there's so much work to be done. So for me personally, I would tap into prayer, tap into my intuition that I use every day. I use energy work, I use my subconscious work, and I'm able to break some of these patterns. See, a lot of people, and it's become almost like a buzzword, but a lot of people in this world, they say, I'm going to break these chains. I'm going to break this, whatever, and then they become, let's say, quote, successful in their own right? They build a business and they look at it and they say, wow, look what I did. And that is an amazing thing. But did you do the root work? That's the question. Did you actually heal? Or did you bypass it by focusing on success, by focusing on abundance, by focusing on having the things that you didn't have? That is the biggest question, because it will come crashing down if you don't do the root work. And I know people that this has happened to that are very successful, that are just over their mind, just so happy about the way things have gone, and then they crash and they wonder why. And going back to our original quote at the beginning of this episode, I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I want you to know that everything they did, every struggle they had that caused these traumas, every turmoil that they went through, all of that was for you. Absolutely for you to be in this moment, to be running a business, to be doing that grind where it feels like an uphill battle most days. All of that work for you to be able to have the luxury of chasing your dreams today. And so why don't we owe them and our family and our future kids and our future grandchildren? Why not do the bigger work there? Why not help them out? It's just the way that I think about it, and it's the way that makes the most sense to me. All of this to say, and I hope I can summarize this whole thing, because I realize that for a lot of people that are listening, this is not just crazy, not just over the top, but a lot of ways inconceivable. I hope you found something that was inspirational with this today. And if I could just summarize some of it, okay? If this is speaking to you, and you're the one, you're the first to rise, you're the first to feel it, you're the first to break and rebuild what you see in your family. I see you, okay? And you're not meant to do this alone. You might be alone in your family, but you're not meant to do it all alone. In fact, when we have the right tools, when we have the right techniques, we are so much better off than doing it on our own. Okay. So if you're ready to shift the patterns in your body, mind, and spirit, and you want to tackle this more on a generational level, I will walk that journey with you. You can book a session or grab one of my resources. I'll put it all in the show notes, and you decide what you think works best for you. I will say that a lot of the money courses I do are circled around generational trauma, because I find that that is a gateway into generational healing. So be that as it may, go ahead and take a look in the show notes. And you guys, let me know if this spoke to you, because I really love this topic, and it came into my mind yesterday and it just has not left. And I knew I had to share another episode with you guys about this. I hope this finds you well, my friend, and have a beautiful day.